Hello and welcome. My name is Christina from Empowered Creator. I am a mindset and conscious manifesting teacher and coach, and this is my YouTube channel. Here I talk about all things law of assumption, mindset, conscious manifesting, the quantum universe, and a lot more. And my goal is to simplify everything without the fluff. So if you guys like this content and you would like to see more of it, I would love it if you would subscribe to this channel, comment on this video, like it, share it, and stick around. Also, if you need help with your specific situation, I offer one-on-one coaching, email coaching, as well as custom subliminals for whatever needs you may have. I also have some self-study courses about manifesting your specific person. So if you're interested in any of these services, the links are below in the description box. Click on them and they're going to take you to my website. With all that being said, let's dive into today's video. In today's video, I want to go a little deeper into the whole concept of circumstances and why we're actually keeping them in our lives. If you've been in the manifesting community for a while, you know that our circumstances, just like everything else, is a manifestation of our own inner world. And the amount of power which circumstances have or don't have over us also depends on us. However, a lot of people find themselves struggling to overcome their circumstances on the mental and emotional level, and they find themselves dwelling in the past, dwelling on the circumstances, and so on. So on this video, I want to go a little deeper into that. And for this purpose, I'm also going to borrow a teaching by Bashar about why people tend to hold on to their circumstances and to what is familiar to them. So this is what I'll be discussing in today's video. Stay tuned. So as I just said in my intro, our circumstances are also, like everything else in our world and in our 3D reality and our 3D experience, a manifestation of what is dominantly going on within us. And in some cases, it might be subconscious patterns, things that are happening to us on autopilot because pretty much they've always happened for us this way. So now they've become a very, very deep-rooted assumption. And in some other cases, it's the byproduct of our dominant thoughts, our dominant conscious assumptions, our dominant conclusions that we draw about the world around us, how we interpret the 3D, how we perceive it, what meanings we give it, what expectations we have of the 3D and of the people around us, and so on. So our main job as conscious manifestors, and one of the biggest challenges for most people, is to learn not to give power to those circumstances and instead assert our power over our life, over our 3D reality, by choosing the reality which we want to experience in the present and in the future. And I do understand that this is easier said than done for most of people, especially those of you who might be starting out or might not be so experienced in practicing the law of assumption, and you might not have so much experience in seeing in practice how it works. And believe me, even when you're advanced, there are times when the circumstances do feel very challenging, if not insurmountable at times. But our job as conscious manifestors is to remember who we truly are at our core. To remember that we have an inner creative power that makes us one with the universe, that makes us creators in our universe, creators in our reality. And as such, there is truly no circumstance that can stand in our way if we don't give it power and if we don't assume it to be a huge obstacle for us, and if we don't allow it to stop us from achieving our desires and achieving our goals anyway. Now, like I just said, this can be a big challenge for a lot of people. And as a matter of fact, as a coach myself, I find that the biggest challenge for most people is to get themselves unstuck from their circumstances, get themselves unstuck from what they're seeing in their 3D, and allow themselves to imagine better for themselves and for their life. And as I said in the intro, I wanted to borrow a teaching by Bashar today and include it in this video because my intention for this video is to give you guys some food for thought. Because at the end of the day, everything is a choice. We might not have choice over what circumstances manifest in our lives because, like I said, this may come from subconscious patterns which we might not have tapped into yet, or we may not have addressed or changed just yet, but we always, 100% of the time have absolute choice over what our attitude is to these circumstances. Even if it's a set of circumstances that are completely undesirable, that they feel completely opposite to what we're manifesting, we still have the choice not to give them power over us. And actually, that alone goes a very, very long way in healing those circumstances, even if they are a manifestation of existing subconscious patterns. The mere fact that we won't be reacting to those the same way as we always have done can be enough to stop these circumstances from presenting themselves over and over again in our future. But to quote Bashar and what I heard him say in one of his teachings one time, which I thought was very, very valuable and very important and very good food for thought for all of us, is that we need to reflect when we're in a situation when we cannot let go of the past, we cannot let go of the circumstances, we cannot let go of the hold the circumstances might have over us. We cannot imagine ourselves not giving power to those circumstances and leaving them aside and imagining our desired reality anyway, regardless of the existence of these circumstances. Essentially, when we find ourselves holding on to those circumstances, holding on to those old patterns, holding on to that old version of ourselves, and not even allowing ourselves to push them aside and imagine better for ourselves anyway, the thing we need to reflect on is, what benefit do we actually derive from that? Nothing that we do as humans is done without at least some perceived benefit. Now, don't get me wrong, this could very well be subconscious. But there is nothing that we do, and that includes holding on to our old self, holding on to our old patterns, holding on to the past, holding on to the old story, holding on to our circumstances, and allowing them to continue to exert power over us, even though we know the teachings of the law of assumption. As far as our mind is concerned, a lot of the time it's our ego mind or our subconscious mind. All of this still holds a perceived benefit for us. Now, what could this benefit be? Even if the circumstances that we're holding on to are completely undesirable, even if they are completely horrible, even if they are completely the opposite of what we're hoping, of what we want, of what we're manifesting. The benefit could simply be that, for example, we're not getting out of our comfort zone by allowing ourselves to step into something that we don't know yet and is not very familiar to us. As a matter of fact, this is the prime motivation of our ego mind to keep us stuck where we are. The benefit might be that we're so used to being in the victimhood state that we actually are kind of comfortable in that situation and in that state. The benefit could be that being in that victimhood state and keeping ourselves in a victimhood state, and we get to blame life, 3D, the circumstances, other people for what is happening to us and what our experience is in the 3D. The benefit could be that we're gaining the sympathy of others by continuing to keep ourselves in that victimhood state. Or the benefit could be that we don't have to dig deeper into ourselves and address some perhaps uncomfortable patterns or perhaps some uncomfortable truths. So even though it's painful, even though it's undesirable, even though it's not what we want, in some cases, in many cases actually, it might be easier for our mind to stick to the familiar, to stick to what we already know. And that's why we keep holding on to our circumstances and holding on to the old story, because we cannot face going into the unfamiliar and into the unknown. And I'm very glad I heard that teaching from Bashar the day that I did, because I think it actually puts a lot into perspective. This explains why so many people, even when they consciously and actively want to manifest their desires, are still at the same time holding on to their old patterns. And not just holding on to their old patterns, refusing to let them go, refusing to even push them aside to start imagining something better for themselves and creating a different reality for themselves. You also need to know that the kind of stress hormones that are released in your brain by these circumstances and by holding on to these circumstances and continuing to despair over them and continuing to worry about them and continuing to just feel helpless and hopeless in front of them are actually addictive to your brain. And this is why you're so stuck in your old habits, your old circumstances, your old stories, and you find yourself so challenged when it comes to breaking free from these habits. So in a nutshell, there is a benefit which your mind derives from this whole negativity and this whole negative state, and this is why you're continuing to hold on to all the undesirable things in your life. At the same time though, the benefit of getting your manifestation, even if that's into the future, and even if you can't see it yet right now, is infinitely bigger and more important than the little benefit you're deriving from holding on to your circumstances so tightly. So this is something that you need to start disciplining yourself about, and you need to start consciously breaking those cycles, those patterns, and those habits, and creating new habits. Now that you know that holding on to your circumstances is only because it's a habit, only because it's what's familiar to you, only because it's your comfort zone, you can start consciously breaking that and giving yourself the opportunity to start imagining better for your life and for your reality and actually choosing your reality. With all that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. I intend that this has helped. As always, I very much appreciate you guys being on this channel, watching this content. I love making this content for you. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all at the next video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.